Luba froze in the doorway. There were people standing in the hallway. Someone else's women's boots, and from the bedroom characteristic sounds were heard, not leaving room for doubt. The scene like from a banal TV series, but never Luba didn't think that she would find herself in such a situation. Rolls. It was as if her legs were filled with lead. She slowly walked up to the bedroom and opened its door. There was no mistake. Dennis, her common-law husband, enthusiastically entertained with a long-legged red-haired girl right in their bed. A lump rose in my throat. Reddy was about to burst into tears. But Luba, she pulled herself together. She wouldn't let this happen. The two of them enjoy her pain. She turned around, slammed the door loudly and ran out of the entrance. I grabbed something on the street. Gasping for air, breathing intermittently, trying calm down. To no avail. The tears burned skin. How could he, she said out loud. The passerby turned around, thinking that a question to him, but Luba was already hurrying away from the home he had considered his own for so long. I'll pick up my things tomorrow or sometime later, she thought, already knowing. Will not return. Buried in scarf, she walked towards the snowstorm. Wind, it was icy. Leaden snow hung in the sky. A sign for a cafe appeared ahead and salvation. Entering inside, Luba panicked. I realized the bag was left at home. Pockets, scraped together money for a cup of coffee. No money, no man, no support, she thought bitterly, taking a sip. Luckily, the phone was in my pocket, and when I warmed up a little, the waiter announced the imminent closure. Luba shivered, looking out the window. A snowstorm got stronger. She didn't want to go back home. I could. I didn't want to see that, who betrayed, trampled, humiliated. In the pocket I felt the keys. Among them were hers office in the publishing house where I've been working for several years now, without hesitation headed there. Who's there? The guard's voice was heard. Ah, Lubotchka, sorry, I didn't realize you were here right away. It's such an hour. Uncle Mish, can I spend the night in the office? In a voice trembling from the cold asked Luba. Mikhail Petrovich, old security guard, was always like that for everyone, darling. Of course, my child, now I'll put the kettle on. You're completely frozen. In the office, Luba took off her down jacket and hugged a cup of hot herbal tea with your hands. She loved her job. Dennis was co-owner of the editorial office. Who owned the second shares, she didn't know. He avoided such conversations. He only mentioned it once. I opened a business with a friend who then sold his share to some businessman. In fact, Dennis was in charge of everything. Luba, after graduating from the journalism department, I came to him in editorial office, quickly rose to the top editor. With his work and sincere, her attitude to work earned her respect. Colleagues, often carried out both their own and his responsibilities, supported Dennis in everything. Even though he never did it to her proposal, Luboverila, not a family. The stamp in her passport was empty for her by formality. But increasingly ended. The one you thought the love of my life turned out to be traitor, she whispered to herself, and bitterly she chuckled. Tears welled up again eyes. Closing herself from the inside, Luba gave free rein to her feelings. After crying through the night, I never fell asleep. I only dozed off in the early morning in a chair. A sharp knock on the door tore her out from oblivion. Luba, open up, came the voice, Dennis's voice. He was pounding on the door like crazy. Her heart started pounding in her chest. I didn't want to see him, but I had no choice. Luba opened the door without saying a word, turned to the window. Why didn't you come home? He asked, as if nothing had happened. She was silent. There were tears too close. No, I won't show it weakness, Luba firmly decided. Squeezing fists, she turned to him with stone-faced. I didn't want to distract you, Denis Vladimirovich, from important matters. He looked her straight in the eyes, without shame, without remorse, and even with a smirk. Come on, Lubotshka, I'm a man, a male. I can't wait forever, as long as you deign. Luba is anemic. These words finally destroyed the Remain's feelings. That's it, the veil has lifted. Illusions dispersed like snow dust outside the window. Judge for yourself. You're either tired or at work you're late, then something else, but what about me remains? Are you serious now? Do you want to say that it is my fault that did you bring some girl into our house? Luba found it difficult to breathe. She waited anything, but there is no such turn. That, when he turned everything upside down, it was already past edge. That's it, the conversation is over, she said and headed towards the exit. But Dennis stepped forward and pressed her against the wall. Where are you going? Do you think I'm just shall I let you go? He chuckled coldly. Let go, Dennis, it's over. I'm more I don't want to see you. She tried to break free, but he squeezed her hands even harder stronger. Have you thought it through, Lubotshka? His voice sounded threatening. You're without nobody has me. I forgot where I came from pulled out. Do you want to go back to that hole where were you born? You're in this city without me no one, you won't even find a job. Luba it seemed like everything inside was breaking. He knew how painful it was for her to hit that spot. She had no relatives. Her parents died when she was little. She was raised grandmother, the only close person, which she also completely lost recently. And now here he is. It's a pity that I haven't seen who you are for so long. In fact, Luba said quietly. Loosened his grip, and at that moment she broke free and ran away, unable to hold back the sobs in my chest. The emptiness grew, like an abyss. After running a few blocks, she stopped. Thoughts were racing, everything it seemed unreal. How can I live now? Where to go? I had to leave Dennis's apartment to leave and as soon as possible. The thought of that you will have to go back for your things, caused an uneasy chill in the stomach. What if he's there? Luba walked along the streets with shops and cafes, trying to somehow put my thoughts in order. Where I was wrong, that's why he started cheating on me. He loved me, I felt it. But in recent months, Dennis has changed. He has become irritated, distant, rude. Constant delays at work, cold, distance. Now she understood, that's all lie. It was especially painful to realize that while she tried to support him, to help, he met secretly with others, and then calmly lay down with her in one bed. Passing by the flower store, one of the most expensive in city, Luba involuntarily stopped. Through the glass she saw the men choosing bouquets. She caught her reflection in the shop window. Swollen from tears, eyes, smudged mascara, tired, a lost face. She smiled sadly to herself and turned away. At that moment, from the store a man came out with a huge basket of white roses. Luba, immersed in her thoughts, crashed into him at full speed. The flowers scattered, she fell on sidewalk. Open your eyes, irritatedly he muttered, but offered his hand to help rise. And at that moment when his hand touched her hand, something happened strange. My whole body felt like cotton wool. In my chest as if a fire had exploded. Breathing intercepted her. A wave of heat covered her and pain. Luba couldn't move. Before scenes flashed before my eyes, as if from someone else's life. The man from the store, this the most, burns in a black car with numbers 5 through 35. He screams in pain. Fire consumes everything. And all this with such forcefully, as if she herself was there next to me. Then there was a gap. She woke up on bench at the bus stop. Nearby still the same man, worried. Oh my God, are you okay? You're lost consciousness. You definitely need to go to the hospital. I'll call a taxi. He started dialing the number, but Luba, grabbing him by the sleeve, whispered, please, not tomorrow, get in your car. You are in danger, mortal danger. I saw it, believe me. The man froze, then chuckled. You should rest. Seriously? You seem to be overtired. He turned around and headed towards a car parked at the sidewalk, black. Wait! Luba screamed and rushed after him. Grabbing his hand, she spoke faster than he could traditional to say something. I know how it sounds good, but please don't sit in it tomorrow, this car, please. Just trust me. Girl, go home. Softly, but he said distantly, and got into the car. I didn't believe it. Of course, in his place she would. I didn't believe it either, but Luba knew her gift, which she had been trying for so many years suppress, returned. She took a deep breath and walked away. It was time to pick up my things. She had a small apartment on the outskirts, which she rented out to tenants. And now there was no choice. I had to go there, move. She called, awkwardly asked to vacate the apartment as soon as possible rather. The tenants turned out to be good people, asked for a little time. Luba just had a baby. Promised to give a couple of days. It was excruciatingly awkward, but there was nowhere to live. She knew from that moment on her life changed forever. They even offered pay the rent a month in advance. After thinking about it, Luba couldn't refuse them. Yes, and the extra money was just what I needed now, by the way. The closer she got to the house, in which I lived for the last few years, the heavier it became on my soul. Approaching to the familiar door, Luba tried collect your thoughts. The thought that might catch Dennis at home, or, even worse, together with his mistress. She was frightened. But, having inserted the key in the lock, she froze. The key, I turned it, but the door wouldn't budge. She even checked, in case she got it mixed up, key. No, the key was the same, but the lock was no longer approached. Dennis changed the locks. Sitting up straight on the step, Luba started crying. It was blow. It wasn't she who betrayed, it was he. But it was he kicked her out like a stranger. She sat there doors until late at night, hoping that Dennis will show up eventually. But he still doesn't. I've arrived. Where to now? Of course, there was an old grandmother's house left in the village, but he was old and neglected. Grandmother, sacrificing everything, I saved up for an apartment in city for her, his only one granddaughters. Since then, Luba hasn't been there, was returning. After thinking, she headed towards publishing house. Mikhail was supposed to be there. Petrovich, an old guard, kind and an understanding person. He will definitely not leave her on the street. When Luba reached the building, her legs were giving way from fatigue. She knocked. Mikhail Petrovich opened the door, but his face was guilty. Lubachka, forgive me, old man, but I was ordered, don't let you in again. This is Dennis ordered. His lips trembled. Yes. After your departure seemed to have broken his chain, he shouted at everyone and ordered them to find him immediately. I need a replacement for you, but to be honest, it's difficult. He will get it. You were pulling for 3. He sighed heavily and then quietly added, I don't know what happened to you, but I can leave you outside. Let's go, you'll spend the night in my closet, and in the morning you'll decide what to do. Thank you, Uncle Misha, Luba whispered, sobbing. My head was buzzing with pain, my heart was constricted from injustice, but as soon as I touched the pillow and immediately fell asleep. Luba woke up early in the morning. On the street it was getting light, and voices could be heard in the building. Having quickly tidied herself up, she headed to her office. He was open. Luba rushed to collect her things. The main thing is the laptop. As soon as I was about to leave when he burst into the office. Dennis. What are you doing here? Who are you? Let you in? You were fired yesterday, he whispered. Don't worry, I came to pick up my things and get paid. I don't need it anymore. You'll see, she answered calmly. The one who stood in front of her was no longer the man she once loved. Get out and put everything back in its place, Dennis yelled, not embarrassed that employees look into the office. This is my personal things, and my laptop too. Not go crazy, Dennis, said Luba, clutching his bag to himself. Furious, he raised his hand, about to strike, but at that moment, the secretary entered the office. Denis Vladimirovich, the general is waiting for you. He already in your office. Lucky you. Get out now, he growled. Luba looked him straight in the eyes. I don't know what happened to you, but apparently it is retribution for my love and fidelity. Knowing one thing, the boomerang always comes back. Everything the evil you have done to me will come back to you. Remember this. And, wiping away tears, ran out of the office. Oleg, he said with weariness in his voice, sitting in leather chair opposite his friend Ilya. I'm tired of everything. I feel like I'm suffocating. Don't exaggerate, friend. You have everything. Business, money, the best women. There's your Marina, like she's from a magazine cover. Yes, everything is beautiful on the outside, but it's empty inside. I want something real, something sincere. But that's all these girls are only interested in size my bank account. Oleg approached window. The view from his office is breathtaking. Panoramic windows, city view, everything as it should be he dreamed, but there was no joy in it anymore brought. He was a romantic by nature, I just skillfully hid it behind business-like manners mask. In his hands was a huge media holding, several publishing houses and TV channels. Today I met strange girl, he said unexpectedly. He bought flowers for Marina. And what? Was she so beautiful that it blew your mind? No, I didn't really get a good look at her, but she said, asked me not to sit down tomorrow car, she said, I'm in danger. Ilya laughed. Oleg, are you trying to be a fortune teller? Did you hit yourself? We have important things to do tomorrow, negotiations. I forgot. I remember. And I still need to go to the publishing house that we bought 2 years ago. Complaints appeared. They say, the manager went crazy and the money appropriates. We need to figure it out. They said goodbye, and Oleg went home. Marina met him at the threshold. She hung on his neck, chirping. How good that you're home. I missed you so much. The whole day I thought about you. Her kisses were soft, but there was no warmth in them. Oleg stood looking somewhere through it, thinking about the strange to a girl from the street. Marin, stop it. I'm tired. Withdrawing, said Oleg. You're such a bore, Oleg. And why did I fall in love with you? Marina said, pouting her lips in a playful manner. And I fell in love, huh? He asked calmly, but with a hint of bitterness. Oleg, looking into her eyes. What do you want? What can I say with this? Marina suddenly tensed up. You're always dissatisfied with something. As if an old man, boring and cold. Oleg silently walked towards his room, but I stopped halfway and turned around. I don't hold anyone. If something doesn't okay, you know the door. As soon as the door slammed behind him, Marina was already complained to her father on the phone. Oleg, lying on the bed, was thinking not about work, not about business, about the past. In memory pictures of childhood surfaced, those warm ones, the times when he lived with his mother in a small provincial town. Then everything seemed simple and real. Father, one day I went to Moscow to earn money and disappeared. Mother was very worried, but for the sake of held on to her son. With her character, and she instilled in him resilience, a real man. Only when I graduated from school and my father suddenly appeared again and suggested moving to the city studies, promising support and work. Later Oleg realized that with his new family it didn't work out for my father. There were no more children, and he remembered the first, the only one. At that time, my father was already wealthy man, wanted to involve Oleg in business. Mother, despite the insult, insisted. Go, you will have a chance for the future. He listened, graduated from university, started work with his father, but soon decided to go in his own way, created his own company and succeeded. He introduced Marina to everything the same father. The girl was a daughter former prosecutor, and although the family has been there was no financial well-being, no connections she had impressive ones. Son, take it. You can't go wrong with Marinka as a wife. She's beautiful, she's smart, and her father will open all the doors for us, the father insisted. And indeed, at first everything was fine until Oleg realized that there is no closeness between them, no spiritual connection. Only one-sided financial interest. Friends admired Marina, but he didn't like it was only getting harder. And recently she became talk about marriage more and more often. The pressure was growing from all sides. Oleg, however, I increasingly caught myself thinking, this is not love. Suddenly in memory the meeting with that strange girl surfaced at the flower shop. Remembering her eyes, her trembling voice and that warning, he suddenly smiled. He took out his phone and called Ilya. Brother, help me out. I'm going to see my mother today. No. I can breathe in this house. You'll go tomorrow to meet you instead of me. What are you talking about? Are you completely despondent? Ilya laughed. But what am I supposed to drive? My car is still in repairs. Take mine. I'll take a taxi. Mom, I promised to come for a long time, I really want to go there. Marina grimaced when she heard about the trip. I thought we were going to the club. What are you doing there? This backwater? This backwater, how are you? I put it this way, my home. There lives the person closest to me. My mother, Oleg answered. Okay, take me with you. The wedding is soon, and we haven't even met, Marina pouted. No need. I want to be alone, he said shortly, dialing the taxi number. He knew Mom with at first glance he will understand that there is no difference between them love. And she always taught, get married need only on heart. Marina even I got a little pouty, but quickly switched over, changed clothes and left for club. Oleg, remembering the matter with publishing house, I decided to stop by there in the morning. He slept poorly, his thoughts were swarming. His life seemed to be losing ground. There is money, but there is no joy. Someone is needed who will he's not around for money, but for love. I recalled how I once decided talk to Dad. Dad, didn't you marry my mother for love? It happened, but how? You see, life has destroyed everything. Love for poor people, calculation for the smart ones, he chuckled. Father. Didn't you destroy everything by leaving for us for the sake of another? And he did the right thing. You would be living in poverty now, but now you have everything. Thank you. Oleg then. I restrained myself, but burned the resentment inside. All he proved in life that he himself is worthy of something more, not for profit, but from the heart. In the morning he woke up to the alarm clock and called a taxi and went to the office. As soon as I entered editorial building, a scream was heard. A tearful girl ran out of the door and, not noticing Oleg, she ran straight into him. He recognized her immediately. The same one with streets with flowers. She didn't look at him and ran on. What's going on? He asked the secretary, surprised. The girl looked back to make sure no one is eavesdropping on them, and said, Oh, Oleg Sergeyevich, here that's it. Denis Vladimirovich fired Luba ours, and after all, everything rested on her. She wonderful person, honest and responsive. But Denis Vladimirovich, in general, the secretary hesitated a little, loves his team, you know? I was waiting for a reaction to my revelation, but Oleg didn't answer, deciding as best he could it would be better to deal with Denis. Denis doesn't he kept me waiting and came running a couple of days later minutes. Oleg looked at this intently person. So what does this mean? Denis Vladimirovich? You were appointed director of the editorial office, but there is still no order. No. A complaint against you? I don't know who you're complaining to, he said, but everything is fine here. Who is spreading these rumors? Or competitors, or disgruntled dismissed employees, Dennis answered brazenly, not looking away. That's exactly it. Last, you just have a high staff turnover time, it's off the charts. Can you tell me what this is about, connected? Oleg asked, starting to get irritated. We filter out defective employees, he quickly responded Dennis. We select only the best specialists. Did I notice? He said Oleg. In general, starting tomorrow and there will be an unscheduled inspection at the publishing house. You can go, you are free. Dennis quickly came out, but Oleg noticed how noticeably tensed up. After making a couple of calls to central office, Oleg gave orders send the best specialists to check in this publishing house, and before the exit requested the case unfairly fired Luba in the HR department. Oleg took a taxi and went to my mother's, in advance having stopped at the store and bought everything necessary. From anticipation of meeting with a loved one in my heart became warm and joyfully. The place where I spent my childhood and Oleg's youth has not changed at all since his last visit. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to come here very often due to a busy schedule. Having paid the taxi driver, Oleg said a little stood near that same 5-story building, which he grew up. More than once he suggested mother to move in with him or buy an apartment in a newer building, but always received a refusal. Inhaling the cold air frosty day, Oleg smiled and went into entrance. The mother did not expect to see her son, but I was very happy about his arrival. Son, are you okay? Be careful, she asked when she saw him behind table. Yes, everything is fine, Mom, Oleg answered monosyllabically, continuing enjoy her cooking. Just usually you warn, but here you don't think. I'm glad you came, but it's like you upset. Tired of the city bustle, I'm drawn to home. I haven't seen you for a long time. I missed you. Oleg smiled like a child. Elena Viktorovna didn't ask any questions, although I noticed that my son was clearly doing something puzzled. That night, for the first time I fell into a deep sleep for a long time and slept until almost lunch the next day, after turning off the phone. When he turned it on again, messages fell down as if he wasn't their connection for a whole month. Call back urgently. There were no fewer such messages from Ilya 10. Among them were messages from Marina, but it was decided with them sorted out later, since things were more important. Ilya answered first, where are you? Have you been missing? I thought something was wrong with you. It happened. It got everyone on their toes, he shouted into the phone. Wait, what happened? Oleg was surprised. It turned out that Oleg's car was in an accident and cannot be restored. In the evening, getting ready to go about his business in Oleg's stead, Ilya I remembered that I forgot important documents in office, and asked the driver to go for them, but he got into a terrible accident, in which he died. According to preliminary versions, the brakes were damaged in the car and the gas tank. The car caught fire. It's an accident, the guys already said, Ilya continued. We are lucky together. I feel sorry for the driver. He's just a young guy settled in. Oleg quickly jumped up and began get ready. Son, how is this possible? Already are you leaving? I can't even talk enough, I made it. Mother couldn't hide her tears. I need to leave. Mom, I'm sorry. I'll be back soon, I'll be back. Don't worry. After kissing her, Oleg hurried to leave the house. 3 days later official examination confirmed guesses. Luba. The calculation that Luba I received it at the cash register and it turned out to be very small, despite her large size busy and responsible, she never didn't ask Dennis to increase his salary. I felt awkward in front of my colleagues. Everyone knew that they lived together. Luba it seemed like this was her contribution to the whole family business. She loved her very much work, and it was a shame that no one estimated 2 hours on a cold commuter train seemed like infinity. Having gotten off at the right station, Luba shivered. The wind pierced right through, but it was impossible to walk far away. Calling a taxi was useless. No car will drive in such weather to the village. Pulling the scarf higher and tucking it in hands and pockets, Luba moved along the barely visible path. It's practically I was exhausted when I was far away a familiar village appeared. A little more after thinking about it, she gathered her last strength. Suddenly she thought she heard some strange sound nearby. Luba looked around and noticed a figure lying in snow. Approaching carefully, she heard the man muttered. "What's wrong with you? Is it bad?" she began to wail, frightened, leaning towards him. The man said something he said, but Luba didn't understand. She delivered the phone and shone it in his face. "Sashka, oh my God, what's wrong with you?" Lying down, Luba recognized her man in the snow, classmate Sashka, who lived not far from her. In childhood they were very friendly, and in his youth Sasha even confessed his love to her. However, later Grandma said that the guy went to crooked path, started drinking. And now she realized that he was dead drunk. It was impossible to leave him here. I would have simply frozen in such a blizzard. To whom Luba didn't know how to call, and the phone was almost discharged. She looked towards the village. It was still a little. It was impossible to lift Sasha. Having torn several packages, Luba tied them among themselves, so that at least a little make it easier to move around snow. So she was able to drag it to villages. Her strength was leaving her, but her hands were completely frozen without gloves. But after a few hours she was finally able to drag him home. Knocking on the window Sashka's house, Luba saw Sofia and Leniknu, his elderly mother. Together they brought him into the house. The woman took a long time, thanked Luba, trying to persuade stay overnight, but Luba hurried to home. A rickety gate, the peeling paint all spoke of that the house is uninhabited. Having felt the key in the secret place, Luba sighed with relief. They always left him there with his grandmother. The house was cold and damp. There was only one window, it turned out to be broken. Firewood in the woodpile there were a few, but for a few days that would have been enough. Luba quickly lit the stove and I went to look for something that could be done, patch up the window. Except for a piece of the old one I couldn't find any linoleum in hill. Having decided to make do with this for now, she got to work. After some time the window stopped blowing heavily, and the heat from the stove gradually began fill the house. Luba lay down on the bed and fell asleep. She woke up from unbearable pain in the hands. They were unnatural color. Luba realized that got frostbite. At that moment there was a knock at the door. On the threshold Sofia Ilinikna stood with a basket in hands. "Luba, hello. Forgive me, I didn't have time to do the old one properly yesterday, thank you. By this boltus I put you down, you already ran away." "What are you saying? No, I could have left him out in the cold," Luba smiled shyly. Come in, I'm the only one who'll treat you, I have nothing. I'll go to the store today, I'll get some provisions." "Oh, what are you saying, baby? Nadia, the saleswoman, will open a store in such weather." Porch, it was covered up to the roof. But it was hard to clean, there's no one. "Here, I brought you some gifts," said Sofia and Lenikna. "There is a domestic chicken, eggs, milk, cottage cheese. I also added some herbal tea, have some tea, and I'll give you some jam cooked." The old woman put the basket on table. Luba took out the treats and thanked the neighbor. Still, the world is not without good people, she thought, about yourself. "What brought you here, my dear?" "Your grandmother said that in the city I've settled in." "Is everything okay with you?" asked Sofia Ilinikna. "That's how things turned out, circumstances," Luba sighed, not wanting to go into detail. Having said goodbye to her neighbor, Luba began for cleaning and cooking dinner. In the house it was already quite warm. In the old Luba found it in the chest among many things, my old tracksuit, which I brought it once. Grandma always I put things in the chest, repeating that everything in life can come in handy. How so? She was right. Luba couldn't help herself tears, remembering my grandmother. It was as if she knew everything in advance. It's no wonder that in the village she were wary, but at the same time for a while, everyone respected her. Nobody knew about her gift, only a granddaughter. The rest are only guessed. My hands hurt more and more, my throat also started to hurt. By evening the temperature rose. There are no medicines in the house, there was none. Only the decoction brought neighbor of grass and jam, a little saved. Waking up in the morning, Luba realized, which made it even worse. I had almost no strength, the fever didn't subside. The girl periodically she fell asleep. She dreamed of her grandmother and those carefree times when they lived together. Luba's parents died when it was almost 7 years old. The bus that was carrying them to work turned over and fell in enemy. Everyone survived except her parents. Grandma seemed to know that this was the case will happen. Luba once asked her, why didn't she dissuade her parents? Go if I knew everything. It's not in my the power to decide the fate of people, granddaughter, answered the grandmother. You can't escape fate, no matter how bitter it may be for us. Since then Luba and her grandmother lived together. The woman took care of her granddaughter as best she could. She even managed to buy it for her a small apartment in the city. Luba I adored my grandmother and always tried help her in everything. That she too inherited her grandmother's gift, Luba found out only in adolescence. Visions were rare, but they always scared her. Luba felt that she could to foresee trouble, but in those moments of strength it was almost impossible to get out of bed. At the door there was a knock. Luba tried to tear it away head from the pillow, thinking that the one who behind the door will definitely help her. I gathered my last strength and slowly headed towards the front door. Knock repeated itself, but when she opened the door, the exhausted girl couldn't look at the guest and lost consciousness. There were no numbers on the houses, like in street names, so Oleg almost I lost hope of finding my friend Luba. Having knocked on one of the few houses, where the light was on, he hoped for at least something to find out about her. The elderly woman who opened door let him into the house. I only know one girl named Luba, whom you can search, the old woman replied. It's mostly old people who live here, and that's it, like my son. She nodded at a loudly snoring man lying on beds. The room smelled of fumes, spoke for himself. Can you imagine, Luba recently saved my idiot from freezing, dragged him on herself when I found it in a snowdrift. You should thank her from me. I can't get up on my own. Third, I've been sick all day. It's tough. Now Oleg knew the direction in which to move. Having found the right house, he noticed that the door covered with snow, and the only one the dim light of the lamp revealed that in there are people in the house. No one answers, the knock answered. I had to knock several times, before he heard footsteps. But when the girl opened the door, barely having raised herself, she fell down without strength. Oleg managed to catch her as he entered the house and carefully carried to the bed. Luba's face was deathly pale. Her whole appearance talked about how she urgently needed to hospital. The idea to call an ambulance was immediately rejected. With this weather, an ambulance can hardly whether he would get there, so Oleg decided to take him away her himself. The SUV he borrowed my father easily overcame snowdrifts. Having wrapped Luba in a warm blanket, he carefully placed her on the back seat cars and headed to the hospital, while simultaneously calling the doctor and receiving instructions. In the emergency room, Oleg carried her in his arms. The doctors had already we were waiting. A separate room, medicine, I'll pay for everything, Oleg said, promising take care of Luba. I beg you, help her, Oleg asked. No, don't worry, it's our duty, he replied the doctor, putting a bill into his pocket, which I received it from Oleg. The girl was taken away, warning that they would report on her condition, as soon as the picture becomes clear. All the way home, Oleg thought about Luba. Not everyone the girl will risk her health, to save someone who was essentially strangers. Amazing, touching and so defenseless. That's exactly how she seems to him, and it seemed, although he hardly knew her. Opening her eyes, Luba couldn't understand where she is found. Only after some time it took her a while to realize it was a hospital. The room was modern, with good repairs. She had only seen such ones in cinema. Her hands were completely bandaged, and water came through a tube medicine from a dropper standing nearby. How she ended up here was unclear. The nurse who entered smiled kindly. Finally came to your senses. I'll call you now doctor, she said. Hurrying out the door, the doctor examined Luba for a long time, asking her many questions about how I'm feeling. Her hands were of particular concern. Well, Luba, your condition has been resolved. Stabilize the development of pneumonia, managed to stop it with drugs, but, of course, you still have to be there under observation. Until complete rest and recover, he finished. The doctor left. Luba remained in the room with the nurse, who changed the medication in 4. Your husband is a great guy for bringing you here in his arms. He lifted up all the staff. I got expensive medications. Any woman you might be envious. Besides, such a handsome man, the nurse added, looking at Luba with a smile. Oh, sorry, she stopped short, noticing the patient's serious look. Husband, you say? Luba asked, perplexed. She didn't understand what was happening. The latest events have faded from memory. Luba couldn't believe that Dennis could take such good care of her, especially after what happened between them. But who, so what then? The next couple of days the same procedures as the previous ones were carried out, injections, taking medications. Only young the nurse brought it from time to time, gifts given by my husband. Every time she spoke of him with admiration. Luba, I was dozing when Oleg entered the room. For two, the girl began to look different. On her a blush appeared on her cheeks, and her breathing became even and calm. Oleg learned from the doctor that Luba's hands were badly damaged and will require long-term treatment. For this, over time, he managed to learn a lot about her. I looked into her case in the editorial HR department and talked with colleagues. He wanted to touch her hand, but he was afraid to scare her. Luba, as if sensing his presence, slowly opened her eyes. You, she whispered. Hello, Oleg replied. I'm Oleg. Then we never got to meet each other, he smiled. I'm sorry if I offended you. I'm sorry, she said, a bunch of nonsense. You probably thought that I'm not normal, Luba answered. That's the point, no, Oleg said, smiling. I'm in your debt. You can, I would say, saved my life. I believed in such things, but your words forced me to cancel my trip. Your sincerity and persistence amaze me. Touched. Thank you. Luba was silent, not in the strength to cope with the ragged breathing in chest. His touch was like an electric shock. She had only experienced something like this back then, when I first found out about my abilities in early childhood. I remembered how scared I was then, and my grandmother. She calmed her down. Her head was spinning, and she slowly sank onto the pillow. You better rest before it's too late. Don't worry, Oleg said solicitously. Do you want me to read to you? He suddenly suggested. Luba nodded. The man sat down on the edge bed, took out a book and started reading. Luba didn't perceive the text, but his voice was so pleasant that it seemed hypnotized her. The girl was silent, trying to discreetly see interlocutor. Today he looked different than at their first meeting. Then on it he was wearing a suit and a formal coat. Now he was wearing blue jeans and a regular sweater. Hair is dark, medium length, neat, combed upwards. Oleg was clean-shaven, and the scent of his perfume was barely perceptible, but very nice. Oleg came every day. At first there were conversations laconic and a little constrained, but over time, they began to communicate as old acquaintances. Common interests, views on life, a sense of humor and, of course, work in one field of profession did your business. How did you find me then? Asked Luba one evening when Oleg was there, as always. He chuckled. It's a long story. I had to meet your ex-director and find out your address. You spoke with Dennis, Luba was surprised. Yes. Oleg immediately changed the subject, and they did not return to this conversation. Luba, good morning, she heard the voice of the attending physician. I owe you inform that you are being discharged tomorrow. The tests came back normal. We'll give you referral for further treatment in another clinic. Unfortunately, your hands are healing not as fast as we expected. Doctor, he said something else and wrote it on a piece of paper, recommendations, and promised to convey everything discharge papers. When the doctor left, Luba felt a little confused. Waiting for discharge was frustrating her. I didn't want to go back to the house. It was hard to get the house running smoothly with sick hands, very scary. She understood that it was unlikely we'll cope. And continuation of treatment in another clinic that the doctor mentioned, it was impossible due to lack of funds. The treatment she received in the hospital, as Luba understood, was paid for by Oleg. That evening he didn't come to her for the first time to visit. Luba waited for him until the onset darkness, but in vain. Sleep didn't come either, thoughts were swarming in my head. After spending almost all night without sleep, early in the morning I got ready, took my statement and headed out to the doctor for the documents. After picking up the discharge papers, she slowly walked towards the exit. Luba, I heard a very familiar voice nearby. Thank God, I thought I was late. Oleg stood next to a bouquet of flowers. Sorry, I couldn't come yesterday, I was busy at all. Many important issues needed to be resolved business. Let's sit down, there's some women to talk about, Oleg suggested, inviting Luba to hospital cafe. Luba almost threw herself into his arms. She had already given up hope to see him. Oleg invited her for table, but was in no hurry to start a conversation. It was obvious that he was worried. I was talking to the doctor, he began, said you need to continue treatment, and it is quite serious. I don't think you should go back to that house in the village. It's practically unusable for living, and getting from there to the city it's simply unrealistic to spend money on procedures. And how will you take care of yourself at home? Oleg paused. I have an apartment in the city, Luba answered quietly. It's me I also know, as well as the fact that you were left without work due to Denis's fault. The man was clearly tense. I have business to ask you, proposal, Oleg finally said. I offer you a job and accommodation in my house. Having said this, he asked questioningly, looked at his interlocutor. What a job? Who? Luba was confused. In her head was complete chaos. Luba, you're great, he's a specialist in his field, Oleg said with a confident tone. I'm sorry, but I had to make some inquiries. I had an idea, very interesting project, but I need help from a person I can trust completely. This person is you. I am confident in you. Besides, you have necessary experience. For now he knows about it a very narrow circle of people. Details we'll discuss it later. Oleg covered her hand with his hand. I have a big house. You will have own room and workspace. We will go to the necessary procedures in order to you recovered faster. He looked at her in the eyes. Think about it. This is the best way out situation. Luba was silent, thinking for a long time proposal. It was difficult to decide, but finally she nodded. I agree. After a short pause, she finally I made up my mind and added to myself, come what may will be. She didn't want to part with Oleg. That was clear. Oleg smiled and he breathed a sigh of relief. Then let's go. Luba, she nodded and they headed towards parked car. In the parking lot it wasn't a jeep that was waiting for them, but a dark blue sedan representative class. Have you decided to change your image? Oleg laughed, noticing the question in her eyes. It was a short distance to the destination, quite far. They led the whole way casual conversation, laughing, and they were joking. But the closer they got, the Oleg became more serious. Finally, he stopped the car at the entrance to a private village. "Luba, there is something I wanted to tell you." Oleg paused. "Besides me, Marina also lives in the house, my girlfriend." This information, it had the effect of a cold shower on Luba. A lump immediately formed in my throat, and in my eyes stung. "I understand," he said tremblingly. Luba answered in a voice. "Don't worry. Marina doesn't understand anything about work, so that no one will interfere with your work, it will be." Luba nodded silently and turned away to the window. Of course, she suspected that a man like Oleg is unlikely to be alone, but deep down I hoped for it. They drove the rest of the way in silence. Parked at a large mansion, Oleg took things for himself. They were Met staff, a female cook, a maid, and an elderly man who was manager. "Your nurse will come closer to the evening and will bring everything necessary for treatment. For now, make yourself comfortable," Oleg said with a smile and came out. Luba sat down on the edge of the huge bed and sighed heavily. The room was decorated in light beige tones and furnished with taste. It had a shower, toilet, and balcony access. Also, Luba discovered a door leading into a small office that had everything necessary for work. The girl looked over her things, of which there were very few. Putting on home kit, she decided that I need to pick up my things tomorrow, Dennis. But she doesn't know yet how to do this, understood. Closer to the evening to her, a nurse actually came. I washed my hands and gave them what was needed medicine. It was clear that the woman professional. Besides, she turned out to be very pleasant to talk to, which Luba now it was really missing. Hearing a knock on the door, Luba shuddered. It was the manager, whose name was Victor. The man invited her to go downstairs dining room for dinner. Luba put on her homemade slippers and followed him. I really wanted to, that's why she didn't linger. Behind the cupboard, Oleg was already waiting for her at the table. He greeted her kindly, smiled and pointed to the seat opposite. "Yourself. Can you forgive me?" he asked. "For what?" Luba didn't understand. "For almost killing you, hunger." Luba laughed. "But something it is useful for girls to have fasting days, she added. "It doesn't matter to you, what?" Oleg winked cheerfully, appreciating Luba's figure. "I see you have this, it's fun." They heard a female voice. A girl was coming down the stairs, approaching dinner table. Cheerful mood quickly evaporated. The girl approached Oleg and kissed him. "Hello, dear. I didn't know we had guests, maybe you could explain," she asked defiantly. "Yes, this is Luba, my personal assistant. As long as she lives in this house, because that's how the circumstances turned out." He looked at Luba. "And this is Marina," he introduced. Luba froze in place. She looked at Marina and couldn't believe my eyes. The girl was with bright red hair and looked very much like the one she caught Dennis with. You'll be dragging all the workers to our house, or is it some special one?" Marina asked brazenly. "To my house. I wanted to say. Luba saved my life, that's why I'm in her debt. Will that suit you?" "Is that an explanation?" he answered calmly. "Oleg, excuse me, I think I'll go to my room. I don't feel well." Luba headed towards her room when Marina's words reached her. "Lord, Oleg, are you crazy? Look at her. What assistant? It's Klusha in the funny pajamas." Marina laughed disgustingly. Luba did not hear the rest of the conversation. My heart was pounding. Maybe she was wrong about Marina? Perhaps, after all, there are a lot of girls with hair like that, and she just got carried away. Imagination. A little later, Vera was brought dinner in the room. It was already late evening. After eating a little, she realized that I would like some tea. She has had this habit for a long time. She loved to drink tea before bed. I always did this with my grandmother, brewed it delicious tea and conversations. The difference was only in the fact that now Luba was in someone else's house. Opening the door, the girl went look for the kitchen. A dim light was burning in the house light. This meant that, most likely, everyone went to their rooms. Having found kitchen, Luba made herself some tea. In there was a huge fireplace in the living room, and the view from the windows opened amazingly. Without turning on light, she went to the window. Huge, the windowsill was just what the doctor ordered. Luba comfortably settled on the windowsill and began to enjoy the tea. In such at certain moments she often thought about her grandmother. I remembered how I first introduced her to Dennis, and how terribly he doesn't I liked it. "This is not your man, granddaughter. He's rotten inside, you know, you'll cry with him," said the grandmother. But Luba is head over heels in love and listens. I didn't want anything then. Dennis seemed to her a prince from a fairy tale. Her first love. After finishing her studies, Luba moved to his apartment, renting out his one-room apartment a lodger. Dennis arranged for her to live in his editorial board, making it almost his right hand. As Luba later realized, it was consisted in the fact that he pushed it onto her all his responsibilities as a manager, taking advantage of its reliability and hard work. That's how it was. Luba adored his work, carrying out assignments during the day. Denisa could write articles at night, edit while being completely immersed in favorite thing. For her, an inexperienced girl, this family life seemed ideal. Lost in her thoughts, Luba did not immediately I noticed footsteps. "I won't disturb you," she heard Oleg's voice very close. He stood with a cup of aromatic drink in your hands. He was wearing a dressing gown and his with the tousled hair indicated that he just took a shower. "That's how he likes it. I haven't seen it yet." The man sat down next to me. "I can't sleep either," he said. "I like to sit in silence with a cup of tea, to think, to dream." "I, too," Luba sighed. "And I also love look at the night sky, at the stars. Evenings like these inspire me to do something new." Oleg smiled. "You're amazing girl, Luba. I've never seen anything like this before I met him. Tell me how you realized that. Am I in danger?" Luba has been. I expected to hear this question. I myself didn't I know how it works. Grandma had the gift of foresight or something like that. Apparently, I like it too was transmitted. Only it happened very rarely, just a few times. She said that my visions predict changes in life. That's it. More there is no explanation. "Thank you," Oleg whispered, looking intently at Luba. The silence dragged on. "I think it's time everyone go to bed," she smiled. Luba, trying to defuse the situation. "Yes, of course, rest. You had a hard time day." Oleg wished her good night, and he himself remained in the living room. Sitting in comfortable leather chair in his office in the office, Oleg drank aromatic coffee. Ilya was sitting opposite. "I don't understand why you dragged her home." He pulled it out eyes. "Naturally, Marinka is against it." Okay," Ilya lectured. "It's normal. It's about helping people more so when you owe them," thoughtfully Oleg answered, savoring his coffee. "How long have you became a philanthropist?" "I didn't do that before. I've observed such tendencies in you." "Wait, maybe you liked it this girl?" Ilya laughed. "She's not a girl, but a very decent woman," Oleg answered calmly. "Let's finish conversation. I'm very busy." "Sorry, Oleg." He gestured towards the door. When he finally I found myself alone in the office, lost in thought. On the table, in the most prominent place, stood a photo frame where they were with Marina together. They were together for several years, but truly close. As it seemed, Oleg, they never did. Yes, Marina was certainly bright and a spectacular girl, but the phone is lying nearby, beeped. A message came from Marina with a reminder of today, an evening trip to the theater. In the hustle and bustle in the last few days he completely forgot about this. I didn't want to go at all, but, imagining how Marina would endure after his refusal, Oleg decided to give him a brain agree. Luba woke up, barely the sun rose. My hands ached, but they didn't hurt anymore as strong as before. Approaching the window, she saw Oleg heading towards his new car. Today he was driving it business suit, like when she wore it I saw it for the first time. As if I felt it look, he turned and looked at her out the window. Luba smiled shyly and she waved her hand at him. The man waved in answer and got into the car. Today Luba I decided to get acquainted with the front upcoming work. But first it was worth take a shower and have breakfast. After going down, Luba found Marina sitting at table. The girl froze in indecision. Oh God, you again. Listen, darling, she said to Luba. This is the dining area for the owners at home, not for the service staff. Oleg accepted you time to help with the work. So be goodbye, have breakfast with the servants and don't spoil anything people's appetite. Marina stood silently looking at Luba. Now there is practically no doubt that it was her she saw in Denis's apartment. What, did I say something unclear? She shouted. Marina, sorry, I really do feel better, leave. Luba answered quietly, leaving for kitchen. The cook made her coffee and gave it to her some sandwiches. The girl grabbed all this in his room, deciding that we'll have breakfast there. The aftertaste from the meeting with Oleg's bride was not the most pleasant, but having immersed herself in work, Luba was able to distract myself from my thoughts. Knock on the door interrupted her. The maid brought in huge bags and put them by the bed. Here, take it, she said cheerfully and quickly disappeared behind the door. There were things in the bags but how could they get there here? After all her things were in the house Denis. Mentally she had already said goodbye to them, deciding to gradually buy everything for themselves necessary. While she was sorting through things, the phone rang, rejoicing like a child. Hello, she heard a familiar voice. Nadez, everything is in place. Hello. How are you? Could you do it? Luba was surprised. Nonsense. I just called your ex to the director and offered to prepare everything your things. Otherwise, I promised, fire me, Oleg answered cheerfully. Thank you to you. Luba imagined Denis's face in that moment and she also smiled. Oleg wished me a good day and hung up. Luba I laid out all the things on the shelves and continued working. She tore herself away from monitor screen only when outside it was already getting dark, and sounds were heard below voices. Looking out the window, she saw Oleg, walking out arm in arm with his bride. Marina was wearing a beautiful evening dress, and her head was adorned with an intricate hairstyle. From the outside, the couple seemed ideal. Two beautiful, successful young people. Luba couldn't tear herself away. Look. Oleg carefully sat his companion into the car without even looking at the window from which a couple was looking at him attentive eyes. The stomach reminded that Luba hadn't eaten for a long time since lunch was missed, so she went down to kitchen. Maid Tanya and cook Nadezhda, whom everyone in the house called Aunt Nadia, already we were having dinner, and when we saw Luba, we invited her to table. The owner asked me to tell you that tomorrow morning you were ready. You will go to the doctor, Tanya said. Luba nodded, finishing chewing a fragrant piece of chicken. Aunt Nadia, you are simply the queen of the kitchen. This is such a delicious treat. Cook, she praised the cook. Oh, Luba, thank you for the praise. The woman smiled bitterly. Just not everyone is so happy, Tanya continued. The owner's bride has already sought it with her own nitpicking. The soup is wrong, it's not served right, too simple, without sophistication. That's all. I'm really fed up with breakfasts. Luba, I hope you will join us. I think I'd better have a snack in the kitchen, answered Luba. Have dinner with us, please, Oleg asked. Luba nodded, unable to refuse him. Having changed into his putting on her favorite pajamas, Luba went down to dinner. Everyone was already at the table, waiting only for her. Marina glanced at the guest, tried to suppress a chuckle, though this did not go unnoticed. Servants, I set the table. Nadezhda, I would like tomorrow for breakfast these wonderful pancakes, that were in the morning. They reminded me of the taste from childhood. Oleg smiled. Oleg Sergeyevich with pleasure. Just not I baked them, and our Luba helped, the cook justified herself. Really? He was surprised, looking at Luba. To everyone you also look great with your merits, you cook, he praised her. Luba, she smiled shyly. You're exaggerating, we just never had servants, my grandmother and I often baked something for tea. I love the smell of baking in the house. This, in my opinion, it adds coziness and warmth. And I don't like pancakes at all, I liked them. They were very fatty. And how much was there? Calories, it's scary to imagine. You would be less into baking, Luba, otherwise it won't take long to turn into a fat woman, Marina said sarcastically. The servants went to the kitchen, and those sitting at the table finally began to serve dinner, continuing the conversation. More precisely, Luba ate silently, and Oleg and Marina were talking. Luba, please tell me, on which one? Where did you buy these funny pajamas at the market? Every time I see you in it, I can't help but laugh. Marina, she laughed unpleasantly. This thing is for me, a very good person gave it to me, that's why she's dear to me. Unlike you, I was born into a simple family, where comfort was valued much more than ostentatiousness, outfits and pathos. Excuse me, I think I'll go, I'm a little tired. Luba went out and she quickly headed to her room. What are you doing to her? Are you always clinging to me? Aren't you tired of it? Oleg asked. I just asked. I can't tolerate these country bumpkins. Yes. Have you forgotten by any chance that I am also from provinces? Maybe you're above me, will you laugh? Luba has a wonderful education, excellent work experience and responsive heart. And what can you do? Oleg raised his voice. Maybe you want trade me for this provincial girl? I'm wondering why you brought her here, dragged it in. Now everything became clear, as if you didn't regret it. Having said this, Marina left the table. Oleg didn't slept. Today he lay down in the living room. Luba, I couldn't get her out of my head. It was easy with her and comfortable. You could be yourself himself. And he was also madly drawn to her. And they've been spending a lot of time in the last few days spent together, and probably also there, in the hospital, he realized that she was not just a random person in his life. In the morning Oleg woke up with a heavy head. To top it all off, I got a call from my father, who in a dissatisfied voice he asked for a meeting. The day promised to be eventful. In the last for a while, communication with my father was not arousing positive emotions, continuous reproaches and claims. That's why Oleg decided start your own business, start from scratch. But about no one was supposed to know about this yet, except Luba. Only she could he trust. Lately this girl seemed to him a ray of light in his gray, as he had seemed like life. More and more time they spent together, and every day Oleg he understood that this girl attracted him stronger and stronger, and its simplicity and spontaneity combined with simply colossal capacity for work amazed him. She was so immersed in a new project that literally breathed it, offering many interesting ideas. After quickly drinking coffee, Oleg went to father's office. A huge building in the center of the city stood out from the crowd business centers. Father loved everything ostentatious, unlike son, who, like him, did not try. On the contrary, I loved him in everything. Is it urgent? Oleg asked, entering spacious office. I won't go, let's beat around the bush, let's get straight to the point. Marina called me yesterday and complained. The man paused and asked questioningly, looked at his son. Ah, so that's it, Oleg chuckled. And you decided to perform in the roles of peacemaker and matchmaker, am I right? Do you understand? No need to exaggerate. Your destiny I care. If you create nonsense, who will guide you except your biological father? Don't you think that the time for education has long passed, and I'm not the little boy you abandoned and which was precisely then in need you most of all, he answered irritably. Oleg. Now I'm old enough for me decided his personal affairs independently, he added, holding back a scream. No, be silly, son. Marina is the perfect option for you, and her father's connections will open up for there are many doors for us. Besides, the girl I'm head over heels in love with you. What else do you want? Is it necessary? And what is this story with the stray you brought into the house? Oleg looked his father intently in the eyes and, barely restraining myself from breaking down in response to the shout, he said, Luba is not a tramp, but a very smart and decent girl, yes, which you all still have a lot to grow and grow. And it's up to you to decide who to bring into your home. Me. He stood up and headed towards the exit, turning around in the doorway. I hope we understand each other. Having said this, he left father's office. I felt disgusted. I didn't want to see anyone, almost anyone. He got into the car and drove to where planned to organize his new path, new project. Luba was there, work was boiling at full speed. This girl was full enthusiasm. Oleg saw her leaning over the papers, and involuntarily admired. Surprisingly, it's only next to her that he felt comfortable, especially in recently. After pouring 2 cups of coffee, Oleg knocked on the door. Luba, she smiled. You don't have to knock, you know, master. You were so carried away, I didn't want to scare you. Besides, you're so fast. I got so into the work that now it seems to me that you're in charge here, not me. Oleg laughed. After drinking coffee, they got down to business, discussing work issues. Luba reported that she found some great specialists, including those from the past place of work. Plus she agreed on meeting with company representatives, producing what they need equipment. I also thought about the design office space and prepared sketches, so you can see. Luba held it out folder. You are a miracle. God himself sent you to me, no other way. Oleg approached Luba, taking her hands in his own. The girl was silent. He, too, without taking his eyes off her lips, he looked at her with a desire to kiss. It was so much so that he barely held back. Suddenly the phone lying in his pocket, it rang loudly. Oleg picked up the phone, moving to the window. Luba's pale face and excitement in her voice, I realized that something had happened. There's something wrong with my mom. They called from hospitals. We need to go urgently. Of course, if you need help. Luba didn't have time finish the sentence. Luba, I hope you'll be there. Please. Oleg took her by the hand. The girl nodded and, taking the upper clothes, followed him. To the place they got to their destination quite slowly for a long time. Despite the fact that its winter was coming to an end, the weather remained truly wintry. Heavy snowfall literally covered the road, paralyzing traffic on some areas. Oleg's phone number rang several times. I called, but he rejected me time after time calls. Arriving at the hospital almost at night, they immediately went to the attending physician, who reported that Oleg's mother had heart attack. After describing the situation, the doctor allowed to visit her only in the morning, so as the woman was conscious. Back there's no point in going. The roads are blocked. Snow, Oleg addressed his companion. We'll spend the night at Mom's apartment, if you don't mind, of course. Luba wasn't against. She could no longer imagine her life without the presence of this person. It's strange, but just recently it seemed to her that she loves Dennis, and now thoughts about she tried to drive Oleg away, because he has a fiancé. But she couldn't. Whenever he was near her or touched her, every cell of her body responded. She liked everything about him: velvety low voice, his smell, his smile, his eyes. With Dennis, Luba is like that. I didn't experience it. He certainly did. I liked it, but it was so incredible. There was never any attraction, even in the beginning of their relationship. And what was she supposed to do compared to that naive girl who she was, having met Dennis? Before him she had never had a serious relationship. The house where the mother's apartment was located, Oleg, there was a 24-hour supermarket, which they stopped by to purchase something to eat. In a small apartment there was an extraordinary comfort and cleanliness. Luba I immediately noticed this. Oleg immediately changed into home clothes, which suited him perfectly. Simple, the t-shirt and shorts looked good on his figure. Luba admired it, trying not to give herself away, although her heart with each it was ready to jump out of my chest in a minute. There were a lot of photos of Oleg in the apartment, different moments of his life. While Luba I was getting used to the apartment, he started prepare a simple dinner. Oleg, may I take a shower? Luba asked timidly. Of course, the bathroom, the room is there, he showed. But I don't have any nightwear. Luba still I became more embarrassed. I think it was from my mother's. There's hardly anything that will suit you in your wardrobe, he smiled. Maybe you'll like my t-shirt, will it fit? You're so petite, and it will be like a dress for you. While Luba was in the bathroom, she was even more worried, imagining what they would have to go through night in one apartment. What am I thinking about? After all, I already live in his house, although there are a lot of people around, and here we are completely alone. Thoughts chaotically replaced each other when she finally appeared in the doorway kitchen in a t-shirt and with a towel on head. Dinner was already ready. Oleg froze, seeing a flushed woman in the doorway. Soul love. My clothes, he finally said, without looking away. Look. It smells delicious. Luba tried to defuse the situation. No, I'm sure it's edible, but I have no choice, we're not here. Oleg smiled surprisingly. Everything was very tasty by dinner time. The tension had eased a bit. Oleg talked about the years he spent living in this apartment together with mother. For some reason he wanted to talk about the difficult relationship with father and about childhood grievances. Luba listened attentively without interrupting. Now Oleg was opening up to her with other side. After dinner Oleg showed photo albums while telling stories related to certain photographs. You were lucky. You had wonderful childhood and wonderful, Mom, Luba said thoughtfully. Take care of her, because family and loved ones, the most valuable thing a person has. I gave a lot so that my loved ones would be nearby, but unfortunately this is not possible. A tear rolled down Luba's cheek. Oleg touched her cheek and wiped away a tear. How she was defenseless at that moment. I wanted to hug her and not let her in, no offense to anyone. Instead, Oleg suddenly leaned over and kissed her. The kiss was filled with tenderness and passion with which both were struggling to cope. Luba replied for a kiss. It seemed like the whole world froze at that moment. Oleg picked up Luba's hands and carried into his room, no stopping kissing. Carefully placing it on bed, he asked, Are you sure that do you want this? One word from you, and I'll stop. His hoarse voice was driving me crazy. Mind. She gently put her hands around his neck and, without answering, she kissed me. That night it was only theirs, and no one else's. And the intimacy was not just physical, it seemed like kindred spirits united into one. Waking up in the morning, Oleg looked at the woman sleeping on his shoulder, Luba. In the dream she was even more beautiful. He slept little and a lot last night, thought. He made the decision to break up with Marina. After last night it was stupid to continue this without that meaningless relationship. Now I realized that I had lost my head and could no longer will be able to live without Luba. The phone lying on the table vibrated. Trying not to wake up Luba, Oleg went into the kitchen, closing the door behind him. But immediately after his departure she opened her eyes, mentally replaying the events of the past in my head. Nights I wanted to scream with happiness. Put on a t-shirt, she wanted to go out, but scraps of conversation delayed her at the door. Marina, stop it. Mom is in the hospital. I'll come tomorrow or in a couple of days, as only her life will be out of danger. Oleg hung up, and Luba wilted, realizing that she is just a casual connection for a man who will soon get married. Morning was rich. After breakfast, the young people went to the hospital. First Oleg visited his doctor, and then we went into Oleg's mother's room. The woman, she was weak, but was very happy to have her son, and when Luba decided to leave them alone, the woman said, You're all glowing, son. I'm so glad that you're finally found my love. Oleg held her by the hand and smiled. They stayed for another 2 days together until the doctor said that danger to life mother. They arrived home early in the morning. I'll talk to Marina today, I'll explain that we need to break up, Oleg said, entering the house. But in the living room his bride was already waiting for him right there, throwing herself into his arms, talking about how much I missed you. Throwing a contemptuous looking towards Luba, Marina kissed the confused Oleg on the lips, hurried to her room, but soon I heard a knock. It was Marina. Do you want to take my fiancé away from me? You have nothing, it will come out. And you know why? I'm expecting a baby. I understood our child with him. And everything is fine with us. It was wonderful before you came to this house. I think you understand that you are the third wheel, and you will do the right thing. Conclusions. With these words, Marina left room, leaving Luba stunned. News. After 2 hours, the things were collected, and Luba was waiting for a taxi. Suddenly someone touched her shoulder. Luba, she heard a painfully familiar voice. No, I need to, Oleg, don't say anything. I need to leave. Marina is right, I'm the third wheel. And it will be better for everyone. Isaac's child, this is sacred. I will never cross it through this. Luba's voice trembled. Forgive me that it happened this way. I didn't know, it's true, but I want to be with you. Oleg looked into her eyes with hope. Sorry, I have to go. The taxi is waiting. Don't worry about it, I don't refuse to engage in development your company. But it will be better if we let's not see each other. It will be easier that way to both of them. Luba turned away and headed towards taxi. And Oleg remained standing, looking after the departing car, taking away his happiness. Yes, he could get away from Marina, help her and the child materially, but he understood that Luba will support such a decision and will not accept it. Luba was settling into her apartment, which the tenants vacated the day before. From morning until she spent late evenings at work, gradually establishing the process and solving a lot of questions. She was burdening herself work to do as little as possible. There was some free time left. Oleg, I never stopped thinking about her for a minute. He knew a lot about the workers of the company and followed her life. He knew that her highly respected and appreciated by all employees. It couldn't be any other way. It was sometimes unbearable at home. Marina told him it was unpleasant, and just the thought of a child kept him close to her. At the nearest, their wedding was supposed to take place in a month, but he tried not to think about it, because every night he dreamed of Luba, and in dreams they were happy together. In one from the evenings when it became completely sad, Oleg decided to visit Ilya, so that at least somehow get distracted. The apartment door was slightly open, and Oleg decided to enter. Having made step, he heard the shouts of 2 men. Voice one of them belonged to Ilya. The second it seemed vaguely familiar. And what are you suggesting to me? If you weren't like that, if I were an idiot, everything would have been as I planned to tear the car apart. What was that supposed to do? Come up with something, Ilya shouted. And what am I, in your opinion? You should have done it. You promised money, but there was no money. Besides, all these checks started. He would soon got to the bottom of it. And who would be to blame? You, of course, would be above suspicion. And I asked you to wait a little longer. He trusts me 100%. But to act it was necessary to be careful. And after the incident he started taking good care of everything with the car, monitor and control everything. I had to go into hiding, Ilya said. Great, and now after all the checks I'll be thrown out into the street. Marina told me she left. But she's pregnant with my child. She said she wasn't going to be with a beggarly ragged man. And this blessed Oleg took her word for it that the child was his. And after all, we had love. But money decides, that's it. In short, either you pay me directly now, either I go and tell him, what a good friend he has. Oleg entered office. Both froze in amazement. Ilya's interlocutor turned out to be Denis, a former husband Luba. But I really did consider you a friend, almost a brother, he addressed Ilya. It's a pity. He kicked Marina out the door that same evening. And already in the morning he rang father, threatening to take away the company if he won't change his mind. Take it, I'm tired of being controlled by you. Seeing you I don't want to anymore. I'll hand over all the affairs tomorrow. Having said this, Oleg turned off the phone and took the car keys and drove off a familiar address. Luba opened it right away. Door. Sorry, I'm an idiot. Marina is pregnant, not from me. But I can't live without you. Luba was silent, and a tear was running down her cheek. I couldn't believe it all happened like this quickly and that Oleg really came to her. All the words she was preparing to tell him, as if they had disappeared, not leaving no trace. You're not a fool, Oleg, Luba finally whispered. You just found himself in a very difficult situation, as well me. I don't know what to do either. That's all, it's too complicated. Oleg, standing on the threshold, leaned forward slightly and carefully took her by the hands. Luba, I was ready for to have this feeling hanging over me, guilt. I thought I could handle it with this. But you turned out to be the person with which I want to be, no matter what. I'm ready to leave Marina. I don't want to live with lie. Luba closed her eyes, feeling how her heart is breaking with a mixture of emotions. It wasn't easy. It was more than that, just worrying about Marina or the child. It was a real struggle, but with her own feelings and with what she seemed right. I know you want to be with her, said Luba, looking up, but you can't just so take and destroy everything that was. You don't have to do this for me. If you're not ready, it's better not to risk it. Oleg stepped closer, without taking his eyes off hers. I